was yesterday morning after the funeral. It felt to me like a service. So yesterday afternoon, and then the Astros were playing an early afternoon game in San Francisco. So I went in, laid on the couch in my office, took like an hour nap, got up, got ready to going to run an errand or whatever.
Yeah.
Was going to get on the bike and do it, and it was I went, no, it's too hot. So anyway, ran an errand, came back home like, oh man, this could be great. I'm thinking, okay, on Monday, tomorrow I'm going to da-da-da. And like 7 o'clock it hit me, oh wait, tomorrow's Sunday. I think I better get the message ready, one of those deals. So good morning, welcome to Fellowship of the Crossroads. Glad you guys are with us this morning on, actually it's August. Dude, can you believe it's August 1st?
the 1st.
It is, and again, it has been so hot. Let me tell you how hot it was yesterday, okay, y'all? Let me tell you how hot it was, okay? So last week, a week and a half ago, Kaylee had her 17th birthday. Bunch of her, yay, I can't believe it. I have a 17-year-old daughter. And there was a boy over at the house this weekend, but that's another story.
That's why you say, oh boy.
Oh, no, yeah. So I went somewhere and some people were like, hey, where's Molly? There's a boy at our house. They went, oh. So anyway, had the funeral, had Barbara's funeral. Yes, Barbara Jones's funeral yesterday morning, and I had pulled out all week in my truck. I had my Yeti that I had all the drinks in for Kaylee's thing, but I drained it out.
You're trying to not let her see them.
Well, right. Well, yeah. So anyway, so they drank the drinks, and then I threw the Yeti back in the truck with the leftover. There was about 6 cans of Coke. The kids drank all the Dr. Pepper, all the water, and all the canned sweet tea, and left like 8 cans of Coke. And I'm like, tells you something. So anyway, they've been in my truck for a week. Yesterday before the funeral, I pulled the Yeti out and I opened the lid and I set it on my back porch to air out. And I had those cans of Coke in it, okay? Got home from the funeral, got home about noon, and I walked back there, and on the porch, the very, the lid, the round lid, unopened, but just the whole top lid of one of the Coke cans is laying like 4 feet away from the Yeti. And I look, and there's Coke splattered all over the place. And I look in there, one of the cans, it literally, the heat caused it to explode, and it landed out. And like 5 of the other cans, the tops are like bulged out. And I went, oh man. Well, I go inside, I change clothes, I come out. There's 2 more in the 5 minutes. There's 2 more laying out there. And I go to ask Molly, I said, man, did you see the Coke things? And she goes, no, but I heard like 4 pow explosions over the last 15 minutes. Yeah. I was wondering why. I looked outside, I didn't see anybody. I said, it's the Coke in the ice in the Yeti exploding because the lid was open. You got to realize Yeti, they keep, if you take I've done this before, you take a Yeti and you set it out in the sun, let it get hot, and then you take a cooked brisket or something,
put it in there,
wrap it in foil, drop it in there and close the lid. That thing will stay hot for 2 days.
Yeah.
And so that's how freaking hot it was yesterday.
For a long time too, right?
It was ridiculous. How hot? Yeah, Kyle, how hot? Let me tell you, it was so hot. Yeah, the chicken laid hard-boiled eggs. But no, it was so hot. No, literally, Coke cans were exploding in my Yeti.
I'll tell you.
No, not my hand. No, not my hand. It wasn't in my hand. It was but the Yeti. But
here's what's crazy is if you put Pringles or something sealed in your car, and then you drive to Colorado, and you get to Colorado, and they're about that fat, bulging.
Yes,
the air pressure.
Because the air pressure, yep. Yeah, I do have the airplanes or but hey, anyway, welcome to Fellowship of the Crossroads. Glad you guys are with us today. Man, it's August, again, 1st of August. A lot of stuff coming up. We've got a social coming up on the 13th. Cody, August is a busy month. The new women's study started last Monday, so it's a great time to still jump in.
Yes.
Not this week, but the next week, the lunch bunch, the women's Thursday lunch bunch starts a new study on Esther. For the kids, a lot of junior high youth, I say junior high, they're transitioning from elementary to junior high, and you go from the children's area to the youth area.
It can be a big shock.
And it can be a big shock. And so Cody in August has some classes that he's going to do for the kids and their parents to help them transition. So if you've got junior high or if you've got elementary school kids that are in that process, or maybe they're 4th, 5th grade or going into 6th grade, this would be a great class to take with them as Cody teaches you how to do that transition.
And what is church?
And what is church? Yeah, what is church?
What are we doing?
Because so many times, in churches like ours and many of the kids, man, you come in and you drop them in the kids area and they've spent, their whole life in that kids area, going there, doing those lessons, doing crafts, having fun. And now all of a sudden they hit 6th grade and they graduate out of that. And now it's time to go to quote unquote adult church. I don't know how adult church ours is, so really, the way I teach. But that's a big transition for a lot of kids.
And another one, and this is where we're losing a lot of them, is they go to these youth services through high school.
Yes.
And they get out of high school and they end up going to college or whatever. They're not going to church.
No.
That's another area where they're not transitioning into the adult service.
Well, but it's not just that. The problem is, and I saw an Andy Stanley study on this, and I think he was absolutely correct. Andy Stanley said, if you've got a youth service, like the kids, the youth, the high school kids, junior high kids, high school kids have their own service. He said, and so that's what they do. So they've spent their whole life, they go from elementary into the 56 club, then they go into the high school, junior high, and they've got their own service. And then when they graduate, you expect them to now go in, or 18, you expect them now go into the adult service. He said, the reason we're losing kids is because those services they're dynamic, they're fun, they're life application, they answer life questions, and then they go to adult service, which is rote and boring and whatever. He said, if you have a youth service, that every 4 years, what you're doing in adult church better transition to look like what they're doing in the youth service, because if they don't, you're going to lose kids.
Because sometimes I think
that's why you lose them, and that's why most people lose them.
Sometimes in high school youth services, they talk about better topics than a lot of times big church does, that are much more meaningful.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we've tried to over the years. The way we do church is we do it in such a way to where it's life application, it's meaningful, it's fun. I do illustrations. I taught youth for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I did junior high, and I knew what it was, what you had to do to keep their attention, and that's kind of my style, because maybe I had a little bit of ADHD or whatever, but my father-in-law was that way. He used illustrations and pictures and maps and kept it moving, and would come out in costumes and do voices, multimedia and that type of stuff. And because I would go to traditional church, I won't say what denominations or whatever, but I would go to there when I was a kid. I'd be bored stiff.
Well, because it was that liturgy where it was it was the ceremony.
Yeah. And then
same thing.
And then when I started going to the old Victoria Bible Church with Dr. Kim Oberholzer, who became my father-in-law, he was unique. Yeah. He was creative. Yeah. He held your attention. It was an incredible balance. And so I learned. So here at Fellowship of the Crossroads, that's the way I teach. You're gonna, I'm gonna show maps. I'm gonna give you a background. We're gonna have illustrations, and we're gonna have points. And it's, my daughter, who's now 17, actually will come, and she sits there and she enjoys listening, and although her and Cindy back there and critique sometimes, but
let me go off on just a little thing real quick. I was thinking about this today. I want to encourage everybody to physically come to church. Okay?
Yes.
If you're watching, you go to another church, go.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't have a church home, come check us out, because here's what I'm discovering.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch TV nowadays, or you're seeing all this stuff that's out there and how politicized everything is, all I'm seeing is that it is driving us apart. Right?
Yes. Oh gosh,
I think what's happening, this is my opinion, is old sayings hang around because they actually probably mean something.
Most cliche, they're cliche, but there's a lot of truth to the cliche.
Right. And this one is, idle time is the devil's playground.
Yep.
And I think my opinion is that when you're staying at home too much still, and you sit there and watch the news over and over again, or you sit there and do all this stuff, and to me, there is so much debating and arguing going on that wouldn't happen, in my opinion, if people didn't have so much idle time and were staying busy doing things.
Yeah.
So get off your rear end and go somewhere. Go to the store. Come to church, because
we need connections. We need community.
Connection, and you need people around you.
Yeah.
And get back into.
I know I think part of this pandemic is isolation. I think people have used it to try to isolate people and divide people, and it's easy to
more divided
than ever.
Everything, whether it's unfortunately that's what happens.
Yeah.
I think when you're by yourself too much.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. You see more and more things are dividing us. You're on this side or this side or this side or this. No matter what political slant you are, you just feel like division.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. So I think it is time, and that's what we're encouraging everybody to do. If you've got a church home, start going there. I mean, if it's not here, doesn't matter. I mean, I want people plugged into a church somewhere. If it's here, great. If it's someplace else, great. But you need to be in community. You need to be with the church family. You need to have that support group.
Absolutely.
We've seen, even this week, I mean, people that don't have that and just how lost and how floundering around they are out there. And it makes me thankful for our church home and our church family. And so we encourage you to come be part of this, because we say here all the time, this isn't just an organization. We are family. Yeah. This is a family. If I look around this atrium right now at all these people catching up and visiting and talking and everything, it's family. I can't wait till we get to the new building. It's going to be even more compact. It'll be tighter with the coffee shop and everything.
You don't know
be
how
family.
important it is until you don't have it.
That's exactly right.
But
so hey, yeah, exactly. So hey, thank you for joining us today. Again, today we're continuing our road tip series, talking about Paul and the Damascus Road, his trip to Damascus. They're the reason he had the original Damascus Road experience.
Funny you say that. When I became a Christian, I didn't have a Damascus Road experience. Paul did.
Paul did. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today as we continue our road trip series. So y'all sit back, hang tight, go grab a cup of coffee or something, and we'll start the service here in about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Dude, that went by fast.
Yeah, it did.
That 15 minutes.
Hey, 10:26.
Open the gates of heaven, let your love flow down. We come and stand before you, laying our hearts down. And though we don't deserve it, you never let us down. Faith, hope, forgiveness, forever your love. Your power is overwhelming. Your presence fills this place. We give our hearts unyielding, living on your grace. And though we don't deserve it, you're always there for us. Faith, hope, forgiveness, forever your love.
Good morning, everyone. Come join us in the auditorium. Welcome to Fellowship of the Crossroads on a beautiful August the 1st. We're glad you're here. We're going to worship together. Here we go. Yes, we do. All right, I want to hear you guys clapping your hands with us on this one, okay? Here we go. Ready.
Such love is this for me. Such love, yeah. Such love, yeah. Such love is this for me. Such love, such love, such love is this for me. Such love, such love, such love is this for me. This is Jesus in His glory, King of heaven, dying for me. He has done it, and His leader, heaven,
All right. Man, good to see all you guys here today. You guys know this one. Sing it out with us. Giver of every breath I breathe, author of all eternity, giver of every perfect thing, to you be the glory. Maker of heaven and of earth, all can comprehend your worth, King of all the universe, to you be the glory. I'm alive because I'm alive in you. And it's all because of Jesus I'm alive. Oh, it's all because the blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, it covers me and raises dead man's life. It's all because of Jesus I'm alive. I'm alive. Giver of every breath I breathe. Sing it with me. Author of all eternity. Giver of every perfect thing. To you be the glory. Maker of heaven and of earth. No one can comprehend your worth. King of all the universe. You be the glory. Sing it out. I'm alive because I'm alive in you. Yeah, it's all because of Jesus I'm alive.
rocking today.
That's right, man.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. So far, so good. Everybody hot. My gosh, it is so freaking hot.
Man, if that music don't get you on fire, then your wood is wet.
That old trick, wood is wet.
That's right.
That's one of those songs in the background. You're going do 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 do. My knees are starting to give out on me already. So
If we all jump to stage, we just start going.
I know. No, I was joking. I mean, it was so hot yesterday. I talked about this in the pre-service. We were talking. I have my Yeti, and it had some Cokes in it. They're about a week old that were sitting there in it from Kaylee's surprise birthday party her friends threw for her a week and a half ago. And I had the lid open so it would air out. And, you forget that Yetis, they keep cold things cold, but if they're they heat things up too. Yeah. The Coke cans yesterday were, when I mean exploding, I would walk outside and the top of one would be 4 feet away and there'd be Coke all over the place. And I went inside. Yeah, I went and the tops are bulging. And I go inside. I was like, wow. I go inside, change clothes. Came out, 2 more of them had done that. And I walked out and I said, Molly, did you see? He goes, well, I heard somebody shooting fireworks or popping something. I thought somebody was out here. I said, no, it's Coke cans exploding. That's how hot it is. So.
Good thing you weren't looking at one.
That's exactly. Hey, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Cody be doing the message today.
Yeah.
Cody's back there going, what? Yeah, run sound and do a message. He's ready. The youth guy, man, that's what I like about youth guys. It's like you just walk into, hey, I need you to do this. I'm good. I'm ready to go. That's when you got a good youth guy. You just, hey, I need you to do this. I'm on that.
I need you on Navarro, Cody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Directing traffic. Stand on the island. Anyway, welcome, Fellowship of the Crossroads. Glad you guys are with us this morning on the first day of August. Can you believe it's August 1st?
I can because of the heat.
Yeah, other than the heat. But I mean, just like now everybody's gearing up for school. Like I said, I remember, I keep thinking summers seem shorter because you get older, and the older you get, the shorter times, the quicker times to go. But then I remember, when we were kids, we didn't go back to school till after Labor Day, and they're like going in a week and a half, mid-August. So
crazy.
That's why we homeschool. Don't have to mess with that. Anyway, love that aspect. Kaylee's like, we can start until September. To heck with it. We're good. Anyway, it's August. We got a lot of stuff going on. I can't keep up with it. Kyle, throw the slides up so I can talk about what we got going on. Chair drive. Hey, we still got the chair drive going. $50 a chair. Again, challenge you. Buy a chair, one for you, for each member of your family. Buy a couple for the people you're going to invite as we in September kick off our Come Grow With Us campaign and start inviting people to come back grow with us. Don't wait till the building's done. Come grow with us now. And so we've got about, how many did we have? I think we're up to like 50. I think we're up to like 50 chairs so far. We were shooting for 300, we need 310. We're up to 50, so y'all keep that going. That's really good. And then ladies Bible study actually started last week. Brand new study. It's not too late to join Monday evenings, 6 to 7:30 right here in the building. Great study, ladies. Join that great bunch. And then we've got other stuff for youth. Cody's got a lot of youth stuff going. Fall, we've got a parents and student meeting on August 12th from August 8th. I see the 12.
12 to 1.
12 to 1. August 8th, 12 to 1. Thank goodness the youth guys back there yelling at me now. It's on the 8th. Come on. I can't read.
You have to go to that, by the way.
I do? Oh, man. Okay. No, just kidding. That's right. I got a daughter in that. I actually have to show. Yeah, I guess it's important that I know when this is. So August 8th, 12 to 1 after the service in the student room. And then also for students, we've got a great class coming up. What is church? 3 25-minute lessons to explain what we do. And we talked to
graders and up.
Yeah, 5th and up. Because you know what? We talked about that this morning too, is that so many times in churches, like ours and all, the way we do church nowadays is that the kids, man, from birth to 5th grade, they're in the children's wing and they're used to being back there and doing the music and doing the crafts and doing all that stuff. And then when they hit 6th grade, all of a sudden it's okay, now you get to go to big church. And they're like, what? Because this is completely different. And so I know that's kind of a freak out transition time for them. So Cody's got a great class he's going to do to kind of help them talk about that and talk about what the transition is. I think it's awesome.
It's open for the parents.
Parents are it's like only 25 minutes, 3 weeks in a row. Is it before? Throw it back up there, Kyle.
Yeah, it's before.
Yeah, before. So 10 a.m. in the student room before service starts. So you get here just a little bit earlier than normal, be in there, be 25, and you'll get about the time we're wrapping up the pre-service out in the atrium, y'all be getting out to come this direction.
That's a good thing.
What else we got? What else am I missing, Kyle? Throw it back up there. Summer social. Ooh, I better know this one. It's in my house. So glad and good for thanks for the reminder. Yeah, August 13th.
Put it on your Google Calendar.
Yeah, it's going to be The 13th. What day is that even?
Friday.
Is it a
Friday
Friday night?
Yeah, Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. Oh, that's right. It is Friday the 13th. What was I thinking? No, just kidding. I'm not stupid-stitious. So anyway, August 13th, six to 8, 6 to 9.
Just be a fun.
Yeah, just come. I mean,
Summer party.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's just a social. Just come, hang out, swim, talk, whatever.
Play some, maybe some horseshoes.
We got.
maybe some.
We got bean bags.
Yeah, what's that?
Cornhole. Yeah, that's it. We got the cornhole going.
Oh, that was popular last.
Yeah,
night.
exactly. So we're going to do some of that, just hang out. So it's just going to be a fun thing to do. Let the kids come swim or don't swim, just hang out. Just that one thing to do, right before summer ends. And then on August 19th, ladies, the lunch bunch study, going to start a brand new study of the book of Esther, noon at the building up here, starting August 19th. So a lot of stuff to do. If you're not sure, we throw this up real quick. Get the app, the Fellowship of the Crossroads app. Go to wherever you get your apps for your smart devices. Type in FOTC Victoria, and it'll come up. It's free, of course, and it's got an event spot on there where we post all the events and things going on here at the church, so you can keep up. It's a great place during the week. Just, when is that? Whip out my phone, because I do that. They're talking, wait a minute, when is this? Or Molly goes, when is this? And I pull out my phone and, oh yeah, that's right, it's this date at this time. So
handy.
It's very, very handy. So hey, so glad you guys are with us today. We're continuing last 2 weeks as we close the summer out here, last 2 weeks of summer road trip. This week, we're going to spend the last 2 weeks traveling with the Apostle Paul. This week, we're going to look at his journey on the road to Damascus. Somebody at one time talking about that one time in a group, and somebody goes, yeah, Paul had a Damascus Road experience. And I went, yeah, that's where the term comes from. Yeah. And they looked at me like, wait, really? He didn't have a Damascus Road experience. He had the Damascus Road experience. Yeah. And so, but there's a lot of stuff with Paul that people don't know. And so we're going to look at that today as we kind of look at that and again, see what we can pull out of it for our own lives. So thank you guys so much for being here today, braving the heat and everything else going on. For those of you watching at home, again, want to invite you, service, everything is open. We're good to go. So come on in, get back into community. If you're watching at home, you really need to get back into community. As we continue today, going to continue through giving. Again, if you're a guest with us today, I want to say thank you so much for being here, coming and kicking the tires. We want this service, this time today, message to be our gift to you. But so don't feel compelled to give in any shape, form, or fashion. But if you're a member or regular attender, whether you're here or at home, as always, give as God's put it on your heart to give. At home, you can give through the app through the PushPay. I hate PushPay, not PushPay. Through Subsplash on, PushPay stole $3,500 from our church. We don't like them very much. Through Subsplash, mail it in to Fellowship of the Crossroads, or you can go to fellowshipofthecrossroads.org, click on the give, and you can give that way. Let me pray. So much for this day, for this opportunity we have to come to worship you, to give back, what we give. And so if we look at our lives, how much we've been blessed, and what we give back out of our pocketbook is so little compared to the way you've blessed each and every one of us. And so we thank you just for your love and your grace, this opportunity we have to gather together, to lift our voices, to praise your name, to celebrate what you've done for us. And so we thank you for this day and this time. We just pray that it be a good day, a good start to a great week. In your son's name. Amen.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me all my days. Yeah, I've been held in your hand from the moment that I wake up till I lay my head. Yeah, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire and darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. The goodness is running after, it's running after me. The goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I'll give you everything. Yeah, your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I'll give you everything. Yeah, your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. God, we thank you for all that you're doing around this place, God. Thank you for every day that we get to have the freedoms that we have, like coming to worship you in this place. I pray that we just stay far away from the distractions today and hear your word clearly, so when we walk out of this place today, God, we can be more like you. That is our goal every day, to be better today than yesterday, better tomorrow than today, and that means more like you. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
West Coast kid.
Myself off. Now I'm back on. Or am I off? I don't know. That song in the bump is Holiday Road from Lindsey Buckingham. And I don't know if you recognize it, but it was a theme song back in 1983 to the Chevy Chase movie Vacation. Now, Vacation is, I don't recommend renting it, but if you can find it on TBS or someplace when it's, been cleaned up a little bit, it's pretty good. But if you remember the story, as a family, they're driving across country to go to Wally World and all the misadventures and the trouble and all the issues they have getting there. And when they get there to Wally World, it's all about getting to Wally World, getting to the end. And after they're there and they get there and the park is closed. Okay, spoiler alert, never mind. It's still a funny movie. But they get there and the park's closed and they realize that, they were so focused, Chevy Chase's character was so focused on getting them there that wasn't what was important. What was important was family. And that seems to be a theme with road trip movies. Another great road trip movie you might remember, an Academy Award winner for Best Picture, I think Hoffman won Best Actor, was Rain Man. And again, the story, Tom Cruise he's supposed to get this inheritance and he finds out he doesn't get it. A brother he didn't know he had is actually the beneficiary and gets the inheritance, so he kidnaps him to try to get what he thinks is his money, and they go on this road trip across the country. They wind up in Vegas because he's an idiot savant, he's autistic, but he can crunch numbers, and of course they play cards in Vegas and he wins his money back, and in the end he finds out it's not about the money, it's about his brother, it's about family. Over and over again, whether it's movies like RV or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the theme of every road trip movie I've ever seen, there's always a destination. There's always some place that the characters are trying to get to, and they're very focused on getting to that destination. That seems to be the whole focus, is getting to the destination. But when they finally get there, start getting close, they realize that the destination wasn't important. It was the journey. It's the things that happened along the way. Again, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey and what you learn as you get there. Those life-changing revelations. Sometimes what people have on some of these roads, they're going to something, they got a project, they think, and then something happens. They have an epiphany. They have a change of heart. There's a tragedy. Something happens on the way to where they think they should be going in life, and it completely changes their outlook. And we call that a Damascus Road conversion or Damascus Road experience. That term, Damascus Road conversion, commonly used to refer to an abrupt about-face on a serious issue of religion, of politics, philosophy, or life. I call it getting ambushed by God. Because that's what happens, is you're going one place, you think you know where you're going, you think you know what the goal is, you think you know what the destination is, you think you know why you're doing what you're doing, and why God has you on the path in life that he has you on, and somewhere along the way you get ambushed by him. And all of a sudden you realize what you thought you were doing and why you thought you were doing it, that wasn't it. That God was using it to show you or teach you or bring you someplace else. And it's like those epiphany moments. And that's what we're looking at today, is in our road trip series, the Apostle Paul, as he had the original Damascus moment, Damascus Road experience out of the book of Acts. And so that's where we're going to spend our time today. Before we jump in, let me pray. Father, as always, thank you for the opportunity we have to dig into your word. Today, we're going to look at something that, we look at Paul's life and we go, oh, that's really cool, that's neat. But we really need to think and focus, because Damascus Road experiences usually aren't fun. They're usually something that you use to grab us and shake us and get our attention and completely change our direction in life. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes we need those, because many times, like Paul, we don't realize that we're down the wrong road. We're doing the wrong thing. We're going the wrong way. And it takes those epiphanies, those tragedies, those Damascus Road experiences to shake the foundations of who we are and to turn us to face and start traveling down the path we need to face. So as we look at this today, help us learn things from Paul's life. Help us learn from what happened to him and what happened after this to him. See how we can apply it to ourselves. Thank you for the opportunity we have today to dig into your word. In your son's name we pray. Amen. So I want to get a little backstory before we start, a little backstory on Paul, the Apostle Paul, because there is confusion with many people about Paul. And I remember that because I remember when I first became a Christian, kind of grew up in the church and around the church and I knew Bible stories or whatever. But I always got Paul confused because it's always weird because I always said the Apostle Paul, but then I would read the Gospels and I never found Paul in the Gospels. And I was thinking, well, was Paul Peter, or was there something going on there? I didn't know. So I'll just give you some background on the Apostle Paul. First of all, the Apostle Paul was born Saul around 5 A.D. Now, Saul is Paul's Jewish name. We'll get to more of that in a second. But Paul was, and what he called himself, he was a Jew of Jews. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. We find that out in Philippians 3:5. But he was from the tribe of Benjamin. So that was one of the 12 tribes of the Jews that all Jews could trace their lineage back to one of Jacob's 12 sons. There was Benjamin, Levi, I can't remember all of them. I remember Abraham, Isaac, Jacob was in the line of patriarchs, and then Joseph was one of his sons. So Benjamin was one of Joseph's brothers, but the 12 tribes of Israel, they could all trace their lineage back to one of those 12 brothers and then change it back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And so he was from the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe that King Saul actually came from. And so Paul was probably named after Saul. Even though he wasn't a great king, he was still admired by the people as being the first king. He was born in the city of Tarsus, which is a big deal. It is very, very significant for Paul's ministry. The town of Tarsus was actually conquered by the Roman general Pompey the Great, and it became a Roman capital. And then in 66 BC, the inhabitants of Tarsus and that area, they gained the right to be Roman citizens. So if you were born in Tarsus, you were considered a Roman citizen. Look at the map here real quick, show you where Tarsus is. So I'm going to go over here. So Tarsus is actually, here is Greece. This is modern day Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel is down here. Tarsus is right up here in what's modern day Turkey, very close to the coast. And just, I can't remember how far, but not far through the trade routes and stuff down here to Jerusalem. And Tarsus was a very metropolitan city, a very wealthy city. Cleopatra actually met Mark Antony in Tarsus. That is a historical happening, in fact, or whatever, around 41 BC. It was a center of science and art. In fact, in the ancient world, most of you people knew about Athens, which is up here in Greece, had a major school, philosophy, thought. A lot of people knew Alexandria, the library and the college and the scholarly thing of Alexandria. Athens was the north metropolitan capital education center. Alexandria was the south. Tarsus was the east. It was on par with Alexandria and Athens, which is why Rome made it a capital and why Roman made all of the people born there, granted them citizenship. Major, very, very important, as we'll see in the life of Paul. So Saul was his Jewish name. So he was a Jew, a full-blooded Jew from the tribe of Benjamin. Saul was his Jewish name. But because he was born in a Roman province and a Roman citizen, his parents also gave him the name Paul. Paul was his Roman Gentile name. So whenever he would be dealing with Jews and Jewish friends, Jewish synagogue people in the synagogue, he went by his Jewish name Saul. But whenever he traveled outside of Jewish circles, when he ran in Roman circles, he would go by the name Paul. And this was, again, very, very important because later on in Paul's ministry, when he was ministering, when he would go someplace and the people would rise up against him, especially because he ministered a whole bunch in what is modern day Turkey, that's where he did a lot of his missionary stuff, a Roman province, the people would get mad at him because he was a Jew and he was teaching and he was rabble-rousing. And so the government, the local officials would start to try to treat him as a Jew, meaning, oh, you're just a Jew, because Jews were a race and a religion. So you're a minority, your Jews tried to treat him badly. And he said, no, I am Paul of Tarsus. I am a Roman citizen. You cannot just throw me in jail. You have to give me a trial. I have to go before the magistrate. I have Roman rights. And they were like, they freaked him out. That's why at the end of Paul's ministry, when he was being persecuted, he was able to appeal to Caesar. He said, no, I want Caesar to hear my case. And as a Roman citizen, he has to hear my case. So this was a huge thing of Paul being fully Jewish and fully Roman at the same time. At the same time. Even though he was fully Jew, fully Gentile, at the same time as in his citizenship. He was raised in Jerusalem. So Paul was raised in Jerusalem, highly educated. When a Jewish child was born, especially a boy, he'd get to be a certain age, and then they would send him to basically religious school. The schooling it would get would be a religious in background. And so when they were like in we would call elementary school age, they would be taught the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Exodus, Numbers. They would be taught the first 5 books, memorize them. Can you imagine, I want you to think of this, can you imagine your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grader memorizing literally the first 5 books of the Old Testament? And back then, they weren't numbered, okay? The whole number thing, when we say, oh, Exodus, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 12, it wasn't that. It was like you handed them War and Peace and said, memorize this, and they went, okay. Now, they did that because they wanted to see who had a knack for it. And so if you were able to do that, then when you got a little bit older, then they would start teaching you the other books of the law and the prophets and the history and all those things. And as you got older and older, by the time you were 13, if they saw you had a knack for it when you were bar mitzvahed and became an adult, then you would go into the next level of school to be a rabbi. If you didn't have what it takes, they would then send you back to your home with your parents, and you would learn your father's trade. Let me give you a side note here. Jesus went through that. Jesus did that. And of course, since he was God, he really didn't have to study much. He knew it. A lot of people say, you see Joseph up to a certain age. I mean, when he was 10, they got him teaching in the temple. And they were like, man, what is up with this kid? They knew he was that smart. And it was not uncommon for him to be doing that because they knew it, because they had been trained in it. There's a reason why you don't see Joseph after a certain point. Joseph passed away, and Jesus, being the oldest, had to go back, and instead of being a rabbi, being part of the Sanhedrin, being a Pharisee, he had to go back and take over the family business to support the family. Mary and Jude and James and Jesus' brothers and sisters. But later on, he was still called rabbi. Remember, people in the New Testament, they'd say, Rabbi, Rabbi, because he had the training and they knew he did. Okay, that was a side note for today. Anyway, I don't know why I went on that rabbit trail. Extra knowledge there. But Paul was raised in Jerusalem, and he studied under the rabbi Gamaliel. Gamaliel is mentioned in Acts 22:3. And he was an incredible rabbi. In fact, Acts 22:3 is when Paul says he studied under Gamaliel. We actually find Gamaliel in Acts 5:34-39, when some of the Christians are teaching, and they're brought before the Sanhedrin, and the Pharisees want to persecute him, and Gamaliel says, look, hey, let him go. Other people have raised up saying this was Messiah, and those guys got a following, and nothing became of it. And this group over here, they said this guy was Messiah, and they rose up and followed him, and they got wiped out. So if these guys are just another set of those guys, let them go, because God will take care of it and wipe them out. But if these guys are from God, then there ain't a thing we can do to stop it. He was a really wise rabbi. Paul taught under him, and Gamaliel learned under Hillel. We find in extra biblical literature. And Hillel was like the Billy Graham of his day. So Saul, learned under the guy who learned under Hillel. Would be like if you had a pastor today, he was mentored by the guy who was mentored by Billy Graham. That's the level that Saul/Paul was at. Now, we don't see Paul anywhere in the Gospels. He's not mentioned, he's not there. He is just a Pharisee, a member of the Sanhedrin. So he's raised up, he's done the stuff, he has to be married, he has to have a wife to be a member of the Sanhedrin and a Pharisee. So he was there. So when Jesus was on trial, the night he was crucified, Paul was in that room. It doesn't say it was, but as a Pharisee and a member of the Sanhedrin, Paul was in that room. Paul saw the mock trials. Paul heard Jesus speak. Very important. Paul saw Jesus crucified. Paul knew he was dead. Probably heard the stories that, hey, the tomb's empty. The disciples, they went and stole his body. That was the story that the Pharisees told, and Paul bought it hook, line, and sinker. The first time we see Paul is in Acts 6, and the Pharisees are questioning Stephen. Stephen was 7 men in the early church who was appointed to serve as a deacon. He was on fire. He was preaching Jesus. And in Acts 6:8 through 7:60, we see Stephen, and I'm not going to read it because it is the longest sermon recorded in Scripture. It's in Acts 6:8 to 7:60. And in it, basically, let me sum it up for you. Stephen is sitting there in front of all the Pharisees and all the Jews and basically giving them a history of, hey, here are all the prophets that God raised up that you didn't like what they were saying, so you stoned them to death. Here's all the prophets that God was using to try to tell you how you need to get your lives back on track, how we need to get the nation back on track, and you killed them. By the way, Jesus was one of those, and you did the same thing to him. They didn't like that very much. In fact, Scripture says that they cried out with a loud voice, stopped their ears, and ran at him with one accord. So basically, let me give you the picture. Remember when you were like in elementary school and you were getting in an argument with somebody about something? It might have been what was for lunch, or whether the Cowboys or the Steelers were the best, or in our state, the Cowboys or the Oilers were the better football team. And whoever you were debating with, you were beating them. I mean, they'd make a point and you'd counter it, in your little third grade logic. And when they knew they were losing, this is what they did. La 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 la. Do you ever remember? Am I the only one that had somebody do that to me? Okay, am I the only one that did that to somebody? Okay, that is what they did. They cried out with a loud voice, stopped their ears, and basically they just went, ah, and just charged Stephen. That's what they did. Goes on, and they cast him out of the city and stoned him. Now when they say stone, we think stone. This is the type of rock that they use to stone somebody with. This is actually, there, you can see a little bit better. I can tell the background, you can see it. But this is the type of rock they said. This is actually a chunk of basically limestone it's from the Jordan River in Israel. It was actually picked up at the spot where David picked up his 5 smooth stones to throw at Goliath. So this is the type of stone that David would have actually put in his sling to sling at Goliath. This is the type of stone that are all over Israel. This is what they would have picked up to stone you with. This thing is probably it's about the size of a baseball and probably twice to maybe 3 times as heavy. You get hit with one of these things, you ain't getting up. You're going down like a sack of potatoes. This is a weapon. When they talk about in Palestine today, when they say, the protesters or the Palestinians are throwing rocks at the Israel army or at the Jews, this is what they're throwing. You can do damage with this thing. This is what they stoned Stephen with. And while they were stoning him, said the witnesses laid down their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. So basically, Saul was there at Stephen's stoning. He was a Pharisee. He was very trusted because basically everybody went, here, hold my coat while I go take this guy out. And so Saul was the guy that they trusted to hold their cloaks while they went and took out Stephen. Pick it up in chapter 8, verse 1. It says, and Saul was in hearty agreement with putting him to death. And on that day, a great persecution arose against the church in Jerusalem, and they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. So what happened was that Paul saw this, saw how the crowds reacted, knew in his mind, we need to put down this bunch of heretics in our midst. And so Paul made it his personal mission, Saul made it his personal mission to persecute and put down what he perceived as this heresy that had risen up in the church. So it goes on. It says, Saul began ravaging the church, entering house after house, dragging off men and women, and he would put them in prison. So this was the first great persecution of the church. And it happened from not the Romans, not Gentiles, but the Jews themselves. Now all this time, Paul was doing that. We had about a year. We go to Acts 8, and Philip and Peter are teaching in Samaria, and Philip meets the Ethiopian eunuch on the road and gets him baptized, and he's saved. So the church is still growing. Even during this whole persecution, the church is still growing. So there you have we now go a year later. Acts 9 picks it up a little more than a year after Acts 6 and Stephen's stoning. It says, now Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest, asked for letters from him to the synagogue at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, both men and women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. So the early church was actually called the Way, and it came from Jesus when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And so the Jews that believed that Jesus was Messiah started calling themselves the Way. And people outside the Judaism thought it was just another sect, another denomination of Judaism. But the Jews internally saw it as complete heresy because they were claiming that Jesus was Messiah. And so they felt that they needed to put it down. And so Paul asked the Sanhedrin, the high priest, for a letter that so he could go to Damascus, go to the synagogues in Damascus, give it to the high priest, the head priest there, and whoever he found that was following Jesus, he could literally bring them back in chains to Jerusalem to be tried in Jerusalem for heresy and then probably be put to death by the Jewish Sanhedrin. So that's where he went. So Paul takes off for Damascus, starts from Jerusalem, starts here basically in Jerusalem, goes up to Samaria, Synopsis, and then heads on to Damascus, which is up here in modern day Syria. Here's Dead Sea, Jordan River, Sea of Galilee. So he's up, Damascus up north here. So somewhere in this area, right outside of Damascus, is where we pick it up. It was about 130 to 150 mile trip, about 6 days. So he had a group of men with him, his entourage, his heavies, because he wasn't going to do it alone. So he had a bunch of big guys with him that were going to go help him round these believers, these Christians, these followers of the Way up. And so somewhere along the way, they're making pretty good time. They're getting there. And all of a sudden, boom, it happens. Acts 9, verse 3. And it came about that as he journeyed, he was approaching Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him, and he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you persecuting me? And he responded, he says, who art thou, Lord? Now, a lot of people say, oh, he recognized Jesus. No, anybody that was higher than you called Lord. Like all the men following Saul to Damascus would have referred to him as Lord. It was a title of respect. But it goes on. But the voice said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. Rise, enter the city, and it shall be told to you what to do. And I think at that point is when Saul, recognized Jesus' voice. The voice he had heard that day at the trial. That voice he heard that night that he was crucified. The men who traveled with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but they saw no one. So they didn't see anyone. Saul is the one who saw him. They all heard him. It says, and then Saul got up from the ground, and he thought, and though his eyes were open, he could see nothing. And leading him by the hand, they brought him to Damascus. See, the road to change in life is usually not what we expect. It's not what we expect. In the Wreck series I did a series called Wrecked years ago. And the tagline for that, life is not about the destination, it's about the journey to get there. That's what Paul discovered. He thought he was going to Damascus to take out the church doing God's work, and God had a completely other path for him to be put on. And we have those Damascus Road experiences a lot of times in life. I mean, my dad had one years ago. I tell this story because it's pretty funny. If you knew my dad, my dad smoked. My whole life I knew he smoked. I don't know when he started. I just knew from the time I was born, he always had a pack of cigarettes in his pocket. When I was 6, 7 years old, he would send me around the corner to the Maverick Market to get a Coke and get him a pack of Doral 2 regulars. Back when they would sell 7-year-olds a pack of cigarettes. Back when you felt comfortable sending your 7-year-old out, to a Stop and Shop, several blocks from your house to buy a pack of cigarettes. But he smoked forever. And one day, it's probably been 10, 12 years ago now. I'm not sure how long it's been, but parents were in their old house, not the one they're in now, and my aunt and my mom had gotten back from seeing my grandmother, who was still up in Louisiana at the time, and Dad went out to the garage to have a cigarette and felt this really, really sharp pain in his chest, started sweating, went in and told my mom, hey, something's going on, I think I need to get to the hospital. And so he goes, I don't think this is good. So they got in the car, rushed to the hospital. Of course, they get there. My mom is like talking to the girl stare. My husband and he's this. And the girl's like, ma'am, just fill out the form. Just. No, you don't understand. Ma'am, fill out the form. And my dad recognized her as somebody he taught, because I think my dad taught practically half the people in this town at one time or another. And he leans over the counter and goes, darling, it's Coach, I'm having a heart attack over here. And she goes, oh, Coach, wham, hits a button, doors open, people come flying out. He's in a wheelchair. He said within like 2 minutes, he was on a table hooked up to stuff. They checked him and they did a test. And they said, yep, Coach, you've got a blockage. You've got a blockage. You haven't gone into cardiac arrest, but you've got a blockage. So they went in and they rushed him in the room. They did the angioplasty. They put a stent in. About 6 hours later, he comes out, sitting there on the table in the recovery room, and the nurse comes up and goes, okay, Coach, man, emergency situation, so rushed, we didn't get to ask you all these questions. Are you allergic to iodine? He's going, well, I think you'd have found that out by now if I was. Okay, ask you a question, are you allergic to this, that, or the other thing? He goes, apparently not. The girl goes, do you smoke? He goes, nope. And she paused, she goes, okay, Coach, I've never seen you without a pack of cigarettes. When did you stop smoking? And he looks up the clock and he goes, about 6 hours ago when they told me I was having a heart attack. That is a Damascus Road experience. He hasn't smoked a cigarette since. Hasn't smoked a cigarette since. You can have Damascus Road experience. It can be drugs, alcohol. It can be job or career. It can be just money. I know people that just, they got so tired of being sick and tired of being broke that, they hate Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, the cuss word in their house, and now they love Dave Ramsey because Dave Ramsey helped them, financial peace helped them get that together. Everybody, when you got issues in your life, you have a Damascus Road experience. Sometimes it takes you a while to realize it. God gave Paul 3 days to mull it over. He sat in Damascus for 3 days, didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't do anything, just waited. Acts 9. And basically, Jesus went to a guy called Ananias, and he said, hey, you need to go talk to, this is where you're going to go. You're going to meet this guy named, you're going to meet Saul. And Ananias answered and said, Lord, I've heard from many about this man named Saul, how much harm he did to the saints in Jerusalem, and he has the authority from the chief priest to bind all who call upon thy name. So Ananias basically said, dude, you want me to go meet Saul? You want me to bring Saul to the church? Okay, God, I know you're God, but do you know who this guy is? But here's the thing, he did it. Kind of the opposite of Jonah, if you think about it. He didn't run the other way. 3 days, Paul had to reflect on what he had done, what he had been doing, when God got a hold of him. And this is the first point. Quickly make these points. Here's the key. I don't know what happened. Better call Saul. Don't let your reputation, what others think, or what you think, these aren't Duracells. I think that could be the issue. No, I was kidding. But anyway. The funny thing is I actually saw this coming and replaced them last week. Thank you, Ricky. Again, don't let your reputation, what others think or what you think about you, stand in your way, because that's what happens so many times, is that we think because of our past, what we've done, what we've had happen, that we're disqualified. When we started the church, called it Renegade. We were a little out there, a little different. I think we still are. And then Skip came and started helping me back in, I think we hadn't been around 3 months that December. We've been going about 6 months, and when Skip came and joined us from Corpus. And we had people tell us, you launching this church, it's gonna be a little bit difficult because you guys are from Victoria. And there is a saying, a prophet is not accepted in their own town. Jesus wasn't accepted in Nazareth. And that's true because, people know you. They know your best. They know your history. They know who you were. Great story of that. Me and Skip, and this was years before, we were at a church here in town, and we did a Christmas production of It's a Wonderful Life. And this guy was one of the guys that played George Bailey in it, was actually a drama teacher at Victoria High. And me and Skip were in Victoria High. We did drama in Victoria High. Let's just say we weren't the best of kids at the time. And I don't mean, basically, but you hear drama kings. We were the drama kings. We were like the bad boys of the drama group. We did improv and record pantomimes. I mean, we would sign up for duet acting, and then we would not learn. And you're supposed to do a scene from, people would do scenes from Helen Keller or from The Crucible, and we would do stuff from Mel Brooks, The Producers, or Blazing Saddles, stuff like that, okay? And then we would never study. We'd just show up at the tournament, and we would literally improv the duet acting and make it to the finals. And the only reason we sometimes wouldn't place is because the judge would go, I know that scene, you improv'd it, I'm giving you fourth in the room because you were still better than the top three, but you improv'd it. So that was us. I mean, there's a Duran Duran song called The Wild Boys, and that's what people called us because we would do goofy stuff. We drove the teachers nuts, but we were good. So it was like, we were like the stupid star athlete quarterback. You don't like it. You don't like their antics sometime, but doggone it, they win, and so you put up with it. And so, unfortunately, that was me and Skip. So we matured, but that's, don't laugh. Back to the story. So anyway, this individual who was now the drama teacher at what then was Memorial, we asked him about it. We said, hey, is Miss Neal still there? And he goes, yeah, she does the cheerleader stuff now. Why? We said, well, she was our drama teacher back when we were in high school 20 years ago. Ask her if she knows us. He goes, okay, I will. And so he came back the next practice and we said, hey, did you ask Miss Neal about us? He goes, yeah, I did. I said, really? He goes, well, I asked her. I said, yeah, I'm doing a play with a couple of your former students. They wanted to say hi, see if you remembered them. And she goes, no, I've been here 30 years. I've had so many students. Go ahead. I'm not going to remember them, but go. Who is it? And she goes, it's Bard Letzinger and Skip Moseshek. And she goes, oh yeah, I remember them. What are they doing now? Well, they're pastors. And she goes, really? A prophet is not accepted or done. Do not let your reputation or what others think or what you think about yourself stand in your way, because God can take that and use that. So 9:15, the Lord said to Ananias, go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the sons of Israel. I said, look, this guy is chosen. I've put him in a unique position. He can witness to the Romans. He can witness to the Jews. There's nobody else that I know like him. I've created him and set him up for this. Don't worry about his past. And that's the second thing. No matter what you have done, God can use you to do great things. No matter what you have done, no matter what your past is, God can use you to do great things. In fact, many times God will use what you think is a detriment, what you think is bringing you down, what Satan tells you disqualifies you. God will take and turn that around and use that in your life to witness and minister to people that if you hadn't gone through the junk or the garbage or whatever it was you had gone through before, you wouldn't have a voice with them. Because so many times I know people that go, you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand what it's like dealing with this. You don't understand. And to have somebody to go, oh no, I do. I've been broke. I've been divorced. I've been hooked on alcohol and drugs. I've had money problems. I've had issues with my kids. I've been there. I've dealt with this disease. No, I know exactly what you're going through, and this is what God has done for me. And God put Paul in that position. So what did Saul to the Jews, Paul to the Romans do? He planted churches all over Asia and Europe. He discipled untold numbers of church leaders, including Timothy and Titus and Philip. He wrote half the New Testament. Galatians, 13 epistles, Galatians, Thessalonians, Corinthians, Romans, Philemon, Colossians, Ephesians, Philippians, Titus, 1st, 2nd Timothy. Hebrews is questionable. I don't think he Hebrews? Some scholars say he do. If he does, it was 14. But even at 13, more than half the New Testament written by Paul. But before this happened, he had to turn his life over to Christ. Ananias departed, entered the house, and after laid hands on Saul and said to him, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road by which you were coming, has sent me so that you may regain your sight and be filled by the Holy Spirit. And this is the third point. Goes back to point 2. Nothing you have done or are currently doing is unforgivable when you turn it over to Jesus. That's the key, when you turn it to Jesus. Immediately, there fell from his eyes something like scales, and Saul regained his sight, and he arose and was baptized. See, our problem is that Satan tells us that this disqualifies you. This says you can't do it. This says you can't be used anymore. This says, no, you're marginalized. And Jesus says, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But the cool thing is, you've got to come to that point. You've got to have your own Damascus Road. You've got to quit being focused on the end and focused on where you are right now to see what Jesus is doing for you at this moment in time. How he's working on your heart, how he's working on these situations, what he's doing to take your tragedy, your mess, your garbage, and turn it to good for him. But we got to quit being normal. Like I said, normal in this country is not working. Normal is being in debt. Normal is hating your job. Normal is one marriage to another. Normal is letting the school system train your kids. Normal is letting TV and society raise our kids. Normal is stressed out. Normal is living day to day with no purpose. Normal is not working. And we've got to have that Damascus Road experience in life and as a church to say, you know what? Normal and the way we do anything in the world isn't working. We've got to do something different. We've got to be different. That's the point. That is the point. Wherever you're at right now in life, I want you to think about it. Because some of you are out there and you got junk, you got garbage. I don't care how big or small. You take the percentages. We've all got stuff we deal with. We all got stuff we're trying to overcome. And we all got stuff that Satan says disqualifies you from being used. It disqualifies you from teaching. It disqualifies you from having a place in the church. It disqualifies you from having a voice or speaking into somebody's life. The challenge is this, to remember this. It's like Paul. It's not how you start, it's how you finish and where you finish. Because Paul started as a Pharisee, as a member of the Sanhedrin, as a persecutor and killer of Christians. And he ended life, let's be honest, the reason that most of us are here in this room today is because of the mission work the Apostle Paul started and trained, and the guys he trained, and the books he wrote a little less than 2,000 years ago. He started bad, he finished strong. That's my challenge. We don't set out to have Damascus Road moments. And we never expect to get ambushed. But the key is when you get ambushed by God, that you realize it and you turn your life over to him. That's the key. And when we make those turns, when we realize what road we're on and we start walking the other direction, that's when everything changes. That's when God starts using us. And that's why when we have the life that God intended us to have. And that's when we start getting better today than we were yesterday, better tomorrow than today. Better is more like Jesus. Let's pray. Father, we all got junk, and you know that. We all got stuff that we probably wouldn't want to stand on the stage and confess in front of everybody in this room. But those are also the things that you can use in our lives, the turning points, that spot where we can, that while it hurts us, you can use it to help us reach other people. None of us want to go through what Paul went through, but you know what? All of us do at some point in our life, in some issue, some way. So Father, I just pray that you help us realize those points before we actually get to them. To turn to have that epiphany before you have to basically blind us, put scales over our eyes, and have us sit and think about it for a few days. And whether it's in a dark room by ourselves or the belly of a fish or just sitting around in our own minds, in our own dark corners of our own rooms, you're there. And you can take our tragedies, you can take our failures, and you can do great things with them. And that's what I pray you do. This church started out as a renegade church, and we still are. We still have that attitude. We're just a bunch of fallen people, a bunch of messes that are here living day by day, trying to do great things for you. And so we ask your continued blessing on us, continue to watch over us, continue to guide us, continue to help us have an impact in this community and around the world. And we thank you for the opportunity we have to follow Paul, look at his life, and see how we can use it and learn from it to make a difference in our lives and the lives of the people around us. Thank you so much for this day and this Sunday we've had together. In your son's name, amen. Well, next week we'll wrap up our road trip series, look at the Apostle Paul,